This is The Law Show on CL 650. Now back to the show.
Well, of course, and the guests like that one. Our producer, Dwayne Bishop, having his usual good time with the music on the program today. And that, of course, Law and Order theme with Joe Murphy, QC, and John Cameron, lawyer at Murphy Battista, LLP, personal injury lawyers, both in studio with us on the Law Show today. And the topic of the program is insurance. We did it last month, and we never got past car insurance. So we made it a point this month when we gathered that we were going to try and cover off a number of other types of insurance. And gentlemen, so far we've looked at home and homeowners and tenants insurance, and spent the last segment talking with some very good suggestions and ideas about life insurance. Now we want to move on to disability. And John, during the break, leaned over and said, this is the area in which there is more conflict between the insured and the insurance company than almost any other type of insurance law. Why is that, John?
I would say, of course, the main area is, of course, ICBC and car crashes, but disability insurance is tricky because it turns a lot on the definition of being disabled.
Okay.
So you might find that you can't go to work, you've been injured, your doctor, your family doctor might agree with you, you might be off work. You'll often find insurance companies might say that in their opinion you're not disabled. You should be able to go back to work. And this is where the battle will start. They'll want you to have more and more medical evidence supporting your condition. And they may even take the step of having you see a doctor of their own who then tells you, I think you're not meeting the test of disabled. And this is where the conflict can begin.
And do you, by the way, if you're contesting some disability insurance outcomes and the insurance company says, no, we'd like you to go see our doctor now, knowing full well in advance this guy's going to sandbag you and back up whatever angle they're taking, do you have to go anyway?
Generally speaking, the policies will contain provisions that part of your terms and responsibilities are to comply with a request for medical assessment. Usually you will have that. And we'd like to think that the doctor won't, the insurance company's doctor won't always, as you say, sandbag the people, but it's certainly something that does happen at times.
How important, Joe, is disability insurance for the average Canadian?
Sterling, if your family is dependent on your income every month, if you don't have a big nest egg set aside for the rainy day, then you need coverage that will replace your income if you can't work. So again, the young family, obligations, a mortgage, a car payment, just the everyday expenses, unless you have money set aside for the rainy day when you can't work, the only way to cover that is with disability insurance.
Now, do most of us buy disability insurance? I've never purchased disability insurance in my life, only because I've had the good fortune to be gainfully employed most of my adult life, and my work, my company, my employers have a package for the staff, and that includes disability insurance. Is that how most of us end up being covered, Joe?
Yes. You get it as part of your benefit package at work.
Okay.
I think of the people covered with disability insurance, 80 to 90% would be through a work package, and the other 10% or 15% would have bought it themselves. The disadvantage of your work plan is if your work there ends, your coverage ends.
Right.
And if you have your own policy, the coverage continues regardless of where you're working. But when you have coverage in a disability plan, there's usually no prior medical check or checklist or examination, whereas in an individual plan, you're back to having a long sheet asking all these questions, requiring full disclosure of any and all problems.
Okay. And John, if you're a self-employed person, or if you have a small business with a couple of other employees, perhaps a mom-and-pop type operation, then you're going to need to go out and purchase disability insurance.
Yes, if you think about a person who's maybe a tradesman or starts up his own little company, goes out on his own, he's his own boss. That's the kind of person, especially if you're young, got a mortgage, you have a family to support, you'd want to think about it because, God forbid something happened to your ability to do your job, no money coming in. We know that the mortgage payments don't stop, the bills keep piling up. And that's the person for whom that becomes very important. And you want to work with someone who's in the industry that's good, who knows about the type of insurance plans that are open to a person in a small business. And, there are some very good, there are some very good plans that you can find for the individual. They can be a little expensive.
Right, okay. Because there would be a cost factor to consider. But then again, of course, and you people you keep coming back to this, regardless of the fact that whether it's even in an apartment, when we were talking about tenants insurance a few minutes ago, John, a typical tenant's package will cost about $350 a year. And so you see these news stories of an apartment building in Coquitlam is on fire and there's 20 suites and people are out. And then the reporter says, and as it turns out, most of those people didn't have insurance.
Yes.
So for $350, $30 a month, you're really out on the street, aren't you?
Yeah, it's the old saying, sort of penny wise and pound foolish.
So the same ethic applies to disability insurance. Sometimes you just have to pony up the dough.
If you can't afford to survive without your income coming in,
right,
then you have to have disability insurance.
What's the difference, Joe, between short and long-term disability?
Sterling, each policy has different terms. They're very similar, but they're different. And in just about every policy, they say if you can't work, we'll pay you short-term benefits of 75%
of your wage.
Wage.
Yeah.
And that might go for 2 months or might go for 6 months. And after that, they say, and then we'll pay you for a further 2 years on long-term benefits, which is a lower percentage. Let's say it's 60% or 2/3 of your income. And usually at the end of the 2 years, they say, and we'll continue to pay you to the age of 65 if you can't do any job.
Oh, okay.
So if you can't do your own job, they pay for 2 years long-term benefits. And if you can't do any job that you're reasonably suited for, then it's paid to the age of 65.
Okay, so this is all. Let's just so an accident occurs. A person who had a corporate benefit disability insurance program is injured to the point where they can't return to work. They're done. So as you mentioned a few minutes ago, when you leave that company, your insurance benefits cease. However, this person is leaving the company not voluntarily, didn't even get fired. They can't go back to work.
If they have a claim that's open during the course of their employment, that claim continues.
It carries forward then. Okay, so it's open-ended in that sense,
yes,
then, right?
Yes, and even if the employer changes the carriers, and quite often employers will say, well, we're getting a better deal with this company, so we'll switch. The claim stays with the original company, and the benefits continue for as long as they should.
Where do the battles occur, John? As you mentioned, this is a pretty high area of conflict between the insured and the insurer. So where do the battles occur?
I think the battles occur in the area of satisfying the proof requirement that the insurer wants that you meet the test in the contract of disabled. That they look at it from the point of view like, are you really, really disabled from working, or are you just choosing to be a malingerer? That's one of the battles. Another battle can be, as Mr. Murphy mentioned, after 2 years, the test changes from being, okay, I can't be Sterling Fox here in the radio show anymore, but they'll say, well, you go be Sterling Fox at McDonald's then. Right. You can do something, and that can be a battle as well, too. Those are sort of the key areas where it often flares up. Contrast with medical evidence between your doctor and the people helping you. And sometimes it turns into an appeal process. So you're appealing away with them, and they're saying, get us one more report, get us something else. It is often very difficult for people who might be out of work and struggling to sort of convince this insurance company.
Well, exactly. And where do these cases end up, Joe? Do they end up in court, or is there some kind of, because it's long-term disability, dealing with people who are no longer able to, in many cases, fend for themselves, is there an arbitration or mediation process that they can get involved in, or does it just go right to court?
Well, it goes to the court system, but mediation is commonly used within a lawsuit to try and resolve things. And it's a very, very effective procedure.
And it keeps the court cost down too, wouldn't it?
It should. Sterling, one of the big problems that I've had in the multitude of disability insurance claims I've done in the past is the language that confuses people. So the policy says, if you are totally disabled, then here's the benefits you get.
Okay.
And the doctor's asked, is Mr. So-and-so totally disabled? Well, doctors don't understand what totally disabled means when it's used in an insurance policy. It doesn't mean someone can't get out of bed, can really do nothing. It means that they can't do all the important parts of their job.
Right. But the doctor, looking at the health and well-being of the patient, sees that they're somewhat ambulatory. They can get out of bed. They can go down and get a glass of juice in the morning, take their pills. So, no, they're not totally disabled.
Yeah, the other problem is the doctor's asked in these forms, is someone totally disabled? And they might say no. Are they partially disabled? They might say yes. Then the form says, and when will the period of total disability end?
Right.
And the doctor thinks, well, I got to fill something in. So they put in 6 months.
Oh.
So come 6 months, benefits are cut off.
Right.
And they say, well, this is your own doctor.
Right.
So the doctor's confused. They're trying to help by filling out the form in every box, but there's confusion about what total disability means, and there's a confusion in that the doctor's not required. And the smarter, more experienced doctors will simply say unknown.
Right. I was just going to say, have you ever had a doctor call you going, look,
Yes.
I'm filling out a form for a guy here, and I'm not sure how to answer this question,
Yep.
and I don't want to put him on the rocks.
Yeah.
So what do you advise? And you say, Doc.
Unknown.
Unknown. Okay.
Don't know.
Just big question marks.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Need to take a quick break. We'll talk travel insurance. And when we come back, it's The Law Show here on CIL 650. Our guests, Joe Murphy and John Cameron from Murphy Battista, LLP, in Vancouver at 650 West Georgia, right downtown in the Scotia Tower, and online at murphybatista.com. Back with lots more after this.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CIL 650.